Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today's Roundtable conference. My name is Arun Gupta. I'm a consulting editor at SMEVenture, a leading B2B media for MSME startups, digital natives, and enterprise IT. I will be your host and moderator today. We are going to be talking about leveraging full potential of your ERP and analytics in the cloud environments. So as a background, the impulse of digitalization of your business has now become a matter of how rather than when. Nobody is really questioning the timing of it. Running a modern business in the digital era can be quite challenging with ruthless market competition that requires constant upgrades to stay ahead of the game. The onus of digital transformation is majorly on the CTOs and CIOs of the organization. SAP is a critical part of the enterprise IT landscape, and transformation of SAP application is integral to the acceleration of the digital transformations. Enterprises are seeking to maximize their existing investments and rationalize costs by migrating business-critical SAP applications and workloads to the public cloud and get more benefits of cloud-driven scalability and agility, which helps them become more responsive to business and client needs. So what we're going to talk about today are the pain points, the challenges, solutions, and the roadmap. And to discuss this today, we have with us our esteemed panelists from diverse industries. Please welcome Mr. Pradipta Patro, who is the head of cybersecurity and IT at RPG Group, KEC International Limited. Welcome, Pradipta.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kushal Varshney, the CTO and CIO at Virescent Infrastructure. Welcome, Kushal.
Thank you, Arun.
And then we have Abhijit Chatterjee, Director Information Technology at TCG Lifesciences. Welcome, Abhijit.
Hi. Hello.
We have Mr. Rajeev Khade. He is Vice President and Global Head IT at Sigma Electric Manufacturing Corporation. We have Mr. Vijay Anand, who's a Business Unit Executive at IBM Public Cloud, India, Southeast Asia.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We would also have a few other people joining us a little later. So as they come in, we will have a conversation with them also. So let's start with the first question, and I'll probably start with Pradipta. Digital transformation seems to be the greatest priority for every organization, more so driven by recent disruptions caused by the pandemic. What's your point of view on how CIOs can help address the changing business demands?
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Anand. Thank you for that. In fact, today the digital transformation is a journey. We need to define the appropriate scope. We need to have the business priority to be provided the value to the organizations, and the phase manner implementation of the digital journey or transformation what we undertook, and validation of the outcome. That is what we look into the digital transformation per se. But how about the digital transformation, what we are talking about as enterprises or organizations? We should look into more strategic roadmap on this particular case, where we need to have the business strategy along with the digital strategy to be aligned, so that we can, it should be well aligned, I can say. It is not just aligned, it should be well aligned, so that we can see the desired outcome of it. And that would be value to the business or value to the organization per se as a whole. Okay, then how we can optimize those processes? We need to identify where to start the business, like the transformation, the digital transformation. There is a starting point somewhere where we have to identify the business's processes and to optimize those processes and eliminating wherever there is a challenges of non-value adding activities. There might be in the process which can be lagging, whether it is a productivity side of it or the business value for perspective. You need to identify those and you eliminated those non-value activities in our complete the processes, whatever, whether it is a manufacturing or a healthcare business or any industries. What are the processes, business processes? We need to develop it and optimize those business processes effectively. That is what it is. Then bringing the culture of the digital fast. See, today we talk always the digital fast, but how fast our organization and organization culture is depend upon that, how full or how fast we can adopt those digital transformation journey. or the digital transformation where we embark for the other enterprises. So that is most important to have the culture of that particular organizations. Then we have to lead from the front. That is the most important point. If the digital implementer or might be digital transformation leaders, we need to have we have to lead from the front. We'll not expect that everything should happen automatically, or might be like, we are expecting somebody else will do for us. As a digital transformation leader, we have to be a front foot and we have to lead from the front. And there is a challenges, there is issues. Of course, it will be coming up those, but definitely that is a long-term perspective. We need to think through and also to visualize those, and we can see that what is happening in the market out of the organizations. So we need to adopt those transformation journey. There is no other way. In nutshell, if we talk about moral of, yes, I can summarize in this point is, yes, of course, digital transformation is a journey. Every enterprises in some other way, they have already started the journey, and we need to adapt thinkfully and strategically. We have to align with the business so that we can be success or succeed for some part of this in the business or enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradipta. Abhijit, you are in a sector which has seen, I think, the most amount of disruption in the last couple of years. What is your point of view?
Okay. I'm assuming I'm audible. So I'll take it up in a couple of phases. So let me first address the impacts that the pandemic had. I mean, specifically whether in our vertical or across verticals rather. So in supply chain, whether it's in manufacturing, there was a major, contention in terms of ramping up the shifts very quickly, running multiple shifts in order to address the, the market demands, rapid hiring. In transportation, transportation capacity and delivery timing was impacted. Suppliers were impacted in terms of the supply capacity, need to rapidly qualify for the new suppliers, find new suppliers who were equipped to deliver during the pandemic thing. On the employee side also, we saw many changes, whether it's the plant and the warehouse workforce, they had to adjust to the social distancing norms, temperature testings, adjustments of workstations to maintain the social distancing. Office-based workforce had the challenges of making their home offices, which we just talked about a few minutes ago, the internet performance, lack of boundaries, securities, personal work separation. Similarly, in field service workforce, we also saw challenges, adjusting various requirements. Desktop support workforce also saw various challenges. So these are not separated out of a CIO's responsibility. So erstwhile, we saw the CIO, as a sort of has, before the wake of this pandemic, has playing a very, very technology-oriented role. But suddenly it sort of shifted more from the technology and less towards the technology and more towards supporting the business in linkages with the technology. One of the things which we saw on the onset of the pandemic that has increased digitization of the business ecosystem, and which is sort of consuming the processes of along with the digital transformation, so to say. So I look at it into three separate segmentation, how the roles of the CIOs have really changed. And technology today is business, literally. So one, obviously, the roles that CIO had to sort of quickly change and adapt to is in safeguard and preventive measures, keeping abreast of the dynamic COVID regulations, making sure the companies are aware of it, ensuring compliances, identifying dispute and monitoring the mitigation processes. They also had to bring in more effectiveness into because people were segregated, people were far, and without the efficiency and the effectiveness, organizations wouldn't have been able to deliver. So they had to accommodate this separation of workforce, the surge in the workload, being close to the business, turning work around quickly, bringing in more automation where necessary, providing innovation or innovative advices to overcome the obstacles that we were faced with, because we were completely caught in a strange world. And in all that, to make sure the effectivity is all right and doing okay, to enhance on the accuracy and the reporting analytics. This has became very, very vital, because it was no longer an in boardroom meeting. It was very segregated, so the reporting has to be very, very strong. And obviously the efficiency part, the technology to sort of support this agile workforce, which I talked about, flexibility of the resources, project management, and maximizing the value spent from the external support. So I feel keeping in line with being agile, being optimized, being digital, I think we had to focus more to implement integrated systems and processes which sort of delivered compliance, efficiency, scalability, sustainability, and the strategic analytic and the life cycle knowledge that sort of our management required. We also had to establish, systems of governance, control, change management, which was not seen in the pre-pandemic era. Considerations of interfaces, knowledge management, operational system. We had to look at reductions of manual processes, bring in more automation, sort of mitigate data integrity, data security, make the business and the processes more scalable, more adaptable in nature, and reduce the customization hindrances. So I think these are some of the challenges I think we had to face, we had to overcome, and we have to completely reorient and readapt ourselves. So this is my take on this question.
Thank you, Abhijit. Welcome, Sanjeev. I think you just joined in. Sanjeev is the CIO of Krishna Industries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello,
So
everyone.
before we come back to you, Sanjeev, I would probably ask Rajeev to give us his opinion around the disruptions that have happened because of the pandemic.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible. And thank you so much for this opportunity, I can say. And it's very relevant and topic of the day. So everywhere it is known that how the COVID situation has impacted us, how the industries was impacted. And for every situation, there should be a kind of opportunity. So one has to see the opportunity in everyday's life. So similarly, from pandemic, we took the opportunity as to how we can improve the process in our organization. And that's how the journey started. And we started working on various digitalization and the robotic process automation projects, shop floor automation projects. Earlier, there was slightly stiffness in that. And later on, as we did the homework and approached the operations teams and the business people, then slowly we started getting acceptance, and that's how we started implementing various projects. So earlier, when we were afraid of entire digitalization projects, hardly 10-15 projects, but later on the situation changed, and entire situation changed from a push technology. So what I mean by push technology is when we approach the business for implementing certain digitalization projects, we were pushed saying that no, we don't want to digitalize anything. We are happy with what we are doing. And the main reason was that people don't want change, or there is always a resistance to change, and that's how. But when we did the entire homework and then studied the cost-benefit analysis, what benefits is going to have to the business, then slowly the acceptance started, and now it is totally different situation. The push technology has changed to pull technology. So IT department is being pulled to various functional heads saying that you come and automate our this process, that process. So overall, last week we could complete around more than 450 plus projects, digitalization projects, spanning across all what departments I can say. It is not only the operations, maintenance, or it is entire finance, HR, purchase, everything. The reason of citing this example was that in spite of the bottlenecks, the troubles, everything, one has to find the opportunity in that, and that's how we did, and we could turn around the situation. And many organizations are going for digitalization projects, coupled with the automation projects. So that has helped really to help organizations to excel, to cope up with the lost time during the pandemic situation. And that has also really helped the manufacturing process excellence, I can say. That's what I always say. What does manufacturing process excellence mean? According to me, is excel in the process that is being performed at every step, whether it is shop floor process, whether it is any other process. How do we enhance the process? How do we enhance the quality of production? How do we add value to the business? What are the steps can be eliminated? What will be the savings in that? So that is what everybody is looking at, and that's what we did at our organization, implemented many projects, and still many more to go. It's not the end of the journey. And at the same time, the entire approach from a in-house data center kind of thing to going into cloud, because cloud has its own benefits. So once you're stabilized on the cloud and then optimization is done, then you can multiply on that and start using the benefits of the cloud, analytical tools and all those things. So that is what is being done, followed. And earlier, the IoT, the digitalization, automation, were all the buzzwords for the industry. But nowadays, it are not the buzzwords. It is, I can say, the need of the hour that everybody is adopting. Earlier, it was a situation wherein why you should go to cloud. Cloud is always a doubt in the mind, saying that no, cloud is not secure. There will be data breaches and all those things. But now the entire situation has changed, and a question needs to be asked: why not to go to cloud? So that is how the situation is changed, and people are adopting more and more. So the pattern can be different. It can be 100% cloud, or the multi-cloud, or the private public cloud. But that is the benefit of the cloud, and people have to take the cloud. We have moved a lot of our applications to cloud, and the most high availability applications have been moved to cloud. And since we moved to cloud, we have not observed any single day, single hour, single minute downtime. So that's the beauty of the cloud. And that's how we have been transforming our entire business process, adopting digitalization, automation, software automation, low-cost automation. That's going on in a very tremendous way, and we are getting benefit. To cut the long story short, this was the example that I gave from my particular organization, and that's how we are doing the entire transformation process by adopting various technologies. Over to you, Arun.
Thank you, Rajeev. I think you have a problem of plenty right now. More demand than the supply can cope up.
Yes. That is how it is happening. Demand supply is. Yes, it's a good. Yes, correct.
Kushal, how's your reality? What are you seeing?
See, I'll touch base 2 points. One, what I've observed in general in industry, and I'll talk about my industry also. So currently I'm representing real energy sector. Like previous company was also into solar and wind. Current one is also into solar. So you rightly mentioned like disruption caused by pandemic, but we have seen like whenever there is a disruption, there is a you can say as a innovation also which is happening, or business transformation which we are saying. So I think we can say it is directly proportional. If there is a disruption happening, so people are forced, no choice left. People are forced to innovate and explore new things. So people are doing business transformation and doing digital transformation. So as I think Rajeev and many of my co-panelists, they highlighted like earlier there was a push. Now there is a pull. There was no choice left. Pandemic has not left anyone. Like it's a globally it has impacted all of us. So definitely it was good for CIOs or tech leaders, because most of the time they were leading the digital transformation. Now pandemic helped them, or it was a good assistance from pandemic, right? It was a good push from pandemic side. And if I talk about my industry, like my previous company also, when I designed the overall IT architecture, so I designed it from scratch. It was a startup 10-year-old company, and everything was on cloud except SCADA systems, some basic servers like AD and those kind of things. And another thing which we faced was contract management. Like we have to sign the contracts and right. So all the we are into B2B, so it was high value contract which we have to sign. So we need some reliable solution. So I opted for some solutions which even supported Aadhaar based authentication. And in India, I think everyone is having Aadhaar, so it's not just USB token based. So those kind of things help us, and from day one we were ready. Like around Modi ji announced it around 22nd of March, and we announced on 16th, like from 17th onwards, it's a work from home. for everyone except site people, which are anyway in very, very remote isolated area. So, and then we were able to monitor. So Rajeev was touch basing around IoT. In 2017-18, I implemented IoT solutions for 850 plus rooftop sites across India. We are monitoring on real-time basis. Plus, we were monitoring our SCADA systems, the SCADA solar farms also on a real-time basis. We also set up a global operations center, a video wall, and which helped us increasing our generation, having higher uptime from same install capacity. So those kind of things we were already doing. But I think as my panelists highlighted, and if I touch base about my current company, our first focus is we are cloud first, SaaS first, or data first company. This company was born in pandemic in August 2020, and since in last 1.5 year tentatively, we have implemented SAP. We also got SAP ACE awards. We are early adopters of SAP PC Private Cloud Edition, which is now branded as Rise as SAP, which is a SaaS offering from SAP. So from a scaling up perspective, the business is looking for agility, and cloud and you can say SaaS applications provide that agility. We don't like currently we don't know what will be the data growth, what will be the sudden surge, what will be the peak. So that is very difficult, and we all have seen supply chain disruption, because of which equipments, be it laptop prices have increased, in your server prices have increased. In fact, stock was not available. People have opted for rental and other things also. So I think cloud and SaaS model is very good from that perspective, and that helped us a lot. So in our case now, even AD, we are using Azure AD. So everything we have implemented, legal compliance, you name the solution, now everything we have implemented. We have even floated InVid, but and all this we have achieved while most of us were working from home or working from anywhere, not just home. So, but yeah, I think it was a great insight and great thing. Like earlier, people, typically non-IT people, they used to wonder, is it possible that people can work from home? So pandemic has proved that yes, from while everyone is working from home, still things can be achieved, and we can work productively and businesses can run.
Yeah, so the work from home hype was largely about control in the past. The pandemic made sure people find different ways of working from anywhere at all outside.
Anywhere, yeah.
Thank you, Kushal. Sanjeev, just to clue you into the question that everyone is articulating about, that because of the disruption caused by the pandemic, digital transformation kind of became the greatest priority for almost every organization. And the question to you is, what is your point of view on how CIOs can address the changing business demands? Sanjeev?
Actually, I was having some connectivity issue. So I would like to really, first of all, congratulate Rajeev that he has done 450 projects during this period. And it's a really good thing. And I echo my support to all the CIOs who are there at the panel, that this pandemic has really brought in the IT to the front desk, or rather to the boardroom, which we were having a backseat previously for the last so many years. But although the pandemic was not good, but for the IT perspective, pandemic was really a boon for the CIOs to really talk about. Like others, I also had the same issue that we were trying to push the digital things as much as possible into the organization, but because of the different priorities of the business, things were really put onto a back burner. Every time there was some project was given to the people to really do a POC or a pilot part of it, that I was always pushed back that, okay, no, today we don't have time. We are busy on the production side. We are, there was an excuse every day for everything to come up. But this pandemic, the moment pandemic started and we sensed that the things are going to be stretched for a lot of time, then we started talking to these operational guys who were sitting idle during this particular period, that why don't we start using this period as a time for automation of the maximum things which really is going to benefit you out of the things. We started these things with the training to be given to the guys, that what exactly the digitization will really bring on table for them, how automation will help them get the visibility of the business and in decision making. And after doing this particular exercises, we started doing the pilot projects for taking one unit into tray that start automating the part. The other thing, important thing which came up was that IT and OT were running into silos, were running into the organization. We started integrating both these things, IT and OT, and lot of robots, machine, and automatic machines which were there in the organization. We started connecting them to the ERP and bringing in all the production data to really capture it online purposes, to show the what is the OE of the machine, what is the downtime, what are the rejections, how is my machine performance going, and what is my consumption of the power when the machines are idle. So all those things we started doing it, and we were able to automate. I think so. I would say something around 60 robots we connected during this period. We connected something around 50 machines, automation machines, which were there to our ERP system. Created the dashboards for the plant managers and the SBU heads to see the real things sitting at their table when they're at home also. How is my plant performing? How is my customer deliveries happening into it? So that really brought the things into a shape that people started admiring the use of IT into the organization, which previously they were not able to do, because everybody was sitting into the plant and they want to go to the plant and see what exactly is happening. But when they were sitting at home and they wanted to see what exactly is happening to my plant, and they were able to see it on a, visually immediately, that really opened up their minds, and the mindset change was there into the organization, and we really were able to push the things fast. But at the same time, what we would see is that during this pandemic, as Kushal was talking about, the prices has shooted up for a lot of things, and we were forced back to really cut down onto the cost of the servers or anything. At the same time, it was not possible for us to move everything onto the cloud also, since we are a traditional company who already have a data center in premise, where a lot of investment has been done onto it. So it was not so easy for us to move the in-premise data center things to the cloud. But yes, we started adopting the cloud in for all non-critical applications which are there in the organization, like all the workflows which we were not using previously. We moved all those workflows, digitized applications into the cloud. All our HR systems were moved to the cloud. We were moving, even the mailing system and everything was moved during this pandemic to the cloud only, and we started utilizing that things in a big way. So the mindset has changed. People are really adopting the IT in a big way, and looking forward for more and more things to be done into IT, so that people are able to make IT as a habit, not as a necessity as of now. So this is all I have, Arun, over to you.
Thank you, Sanjeev. I think one of the key points you mentioned, distance was no longer a limitation for people to do anything. You could be anywhere and you could still look at your manufacturing facility, what's happening, machine utilization, capacity utilization, everything is possible wherever you might be. Last but not the least, let's come to Vijay. Vijay, you heard all the panelists. What's an IBM point of view on the optimization of capacity, and how is IBM helping organizations with their digital transformations?
In fact, heard a lot of real interesting things within your organizations, a lot of learning for me. But most importantly, cloud, the pandemic has definitely accelerated the transformation journey. In fact, I was hearing to one of the conversations with a leading lifestyle organization within India, and that CEO said we had a lot of things planned, and we were going on a digital transformation on a very systematic geometric progression. But this pandemic has changed everything. It has cut down their journey time on digital transformation by a couple of years. So that's the level of disruption the pandemic has brought into the system. Okay, and as Kushal pointed out, the disruptions leads to innovation. Okay, I think well said, because that's what finally it happened. As Mr. Sanjeev pointed out, also the ability of the business to see what is happening. Okay, in terms of what the IT and OT can integrate, I think lot of stuff has happened. The best thing is IBM has taken cognizance of all these things, and the offerings are built and offered to customer in such a way that it meets the real-time expectation. Like Mr. Sanjeev pointed out, there is a significant investment that has gone into the on-prem data centers. So it is not possible for movement lock, stock, and barrel. Similarly, on SCADA and other plant applications, cloud might not be the ideal choice. But what IBM thinks through is one of the way that we allow every customer to experience cloud is extending the public cloud to your environment. Okay, so that is one of the fundamental principles of how the cloud architecture or the cloud platform is built. Let me quickly touch over in terms of what IBM Cloud Platform can deliver. Of course, it's built on three major building blocks. One is on the security leadership, one is on the open, hybrid, and distributed cloud, and third is on the enterprise grade. I'll quickly touch on the open, hybrid, and distributed because most of the discussions that we had is pertaining to that. In terms of the multiple rollouts, in terms of integrating IT and OT, in terms of taking the cloud or extending the cloud to the edge, networking, all these fits under this, and our acquisition of Red Hat definitely accelerated, and most of our stack is built around Red Hat, which gives you the ability to implement these things real life in your environment when you adopt the cloud technologies of IBM. Over to you, Mr.
Yes, thank you, Vijay. Let's move on to the next part of our conversation. And I guess everyone talked about the cloud. In some shape or form, you have been able to use the cloud, leverage the cloud. Do you see cloud as a big tool in your hands to optimally utilize resources? This is an open question. Let's start with Abhijit.
Hi. Yeah, so I think there's no point reiterating the advantages of cloud. I think we are all aware that in terms of the scalability, innovation, cost effectiveness, improved DevOps capability, compliance, security, flexibility, etc., etc. I think we are all aware that what it delivers. And I think as we move on to the cloud, there are a few things I'll just touch upon briefly that I think we in our positions needs to be aware of. I think be aware of the interdependencies of the resources and the scalability limits, be able to deal with the rapid change of the software and the infrastructure, and be able to deal with the spikes in demand. This is very, very critical, and you need to plan ahead in time. So I'll give a contextual example from our company in life sciences. When I joined, we found that this is primarily most of the life sciences company, rather, in this spectrum. They're traditional run company. They had in-house infrastructure where they protected their IP and etc. So, but things are changing in drug discovery as well. A lot of improvisations has happened, specifically in the predictability of the retrosynthesis pathways. We have huge sets of data. Now we do not have the compute in order to calculate the huge set of data and give the predictability to the scientists so that they can understand which right pathway to take, so to cut down on the cycle time. Obviously, these are the areas where you require high compute, and obviously clouds, as I said, comes into play. And the natural progression obviously would be to adopt into cloud. Likewise, we have applications, right? We have several either homegrown or external applications which does this, and they consume a lot of infrastructure. And we also have what's known as a notebook, lab notebooks, where large chunks and volumes of data needs to be stored. So over the period of this company has been there for 20 years, and over the period it has grown huge amount of data. We also have instruments, right? And NMR instruments, lab instruments, which produces huge amount of high volume data. In one day, we have about 63 devices or instruments in our labs. It can generate as high as 1 terabyte, maybe 1.5 terabyte of data in one day. Now, what we saw, they were sort of keeping everything in tapes and discs and stuff like that. Obviously, there was a natural progression we had to move so that, because these are costly affair. So the transition obviously was the natural way to go, but keeping in mind, which I talked about, that the interdependencies between the resources, the scalability limits, the spikes in demand. So one of the things which we do as we move ahead and gradually shifting the workload into cloud was to look at some of the critical capability and constraints. One obviously is to observe, monitor, measure the applications that we are running, the inputs that are going out, the outputs that are coming, the traffic, the latency, because when we are pushing the data into cloud, whether it's a Glacier, Deep Glacier, or a Glacier services from AWS, we have to look at the latency as well in order to pull that data. Connectivity is an important concern for us. Being aware what are the services which are running and what dependencies they have on the infrastructure that we have internally. Building the topology and discovering this configured limit is very, very critical, I think. And before we get into any of these workload transition is the simulation part. Simulate and perform the stress test, know your NFR very well, discover the hidden constraints that might come in, the interdependencies that might come in. So we always run these POCs in order to so we have the tools. These days, all tools are available. So run this so that you know that what are the constraints that you may face in the future, and analyze the behavior of the systems under load and generate insights, generate recommendations, understand the correlations and the dependencies, right? And act on it. Take the automated actions in order to prevent services which can go beyond its capacity limits, and suddenly the system will collapse. So I think various things that we can adopt as we move into cloud. It is a great tool to have. It's convenient, as I said. I'm not getting into the benefits again, but it is important in order to manage the capacity of it, distribute the loads properly so that you bring in efficiency and agility at the same time. If you're running an application, you can run APM tools, which can discover the connectivity between applications and sort of give you that information ahead in time. You can do cloud management. There are tools for self-service of the cloud usage, manage the infrastructure for the cloud provider for the right sizing functionality. These are also available. And for those who are getting into the higher end of the part, you have the emerging AI ops software category, which provides processing data much quicker, heavier data, which possibly your on-site things cannot probably handle. So it's a various combinations. I think you need to be cognitive of what are the constraints while you have the tools. Use the tools effectively to bring in that efficiency, agility, and the productivity that you remember, that you require. Side by side, very critical for us because we deal with a lot of high-end intellectual property, is security component. So the governance and the security aspect has to be of paramount importance in certain organizations. So use the tools in the right manner, get the information ahead in time, which you can do now, and then move your workloads to bring in more agility in the organization. That's it.
Kushal, do you want to add anything to what Abhijit said?
Yeah, sure, Arun. And I just want to classify all this into 3 scenarios which we all come across. So if I talk about cloud, so one is because now we all are heading towards the normal working, right? So we are all saying we need to live with the pandemic, so back to office, back to normal. So in normal scenario, also why cloud will make a sense. And second, so normal scenario, if we say like Abhijit touch base, if we want to experiment anything, right? If we want to do some sandboxing, so those scenarios we can use cloud. So that is a very good thing. Plus, other reason why we should use cloud is out of the box, lots of applications or add-on functionalities like ML, AI, NLP, or some advanced things which they offer, which may not be available on premise. Third thing, if I talk about from a normal scenario perspective, is like resource skill set gap. Right, when we move to the cloud, and it may be managed by some partner or managed by the service provider, right? Because now with the pandemic, we have also seen the great attrition in particularly in IT sector, right? So there also, if we move things to cloud or SaaS model, it will help us from a resource skill set gap perspective also, right? And other things which we always say, like whenever I discuss with traditional people, typically from business side, they always say, on premise it will cost this much, but on cloud it is costly. When they are calculating the TCO, they always forget that there is a cost of space, there is a cost of electricity, right? You also incur costs for your ACs, your manpower, lots of other stuff which people forget, right? And someone who is doing this as mass, right? They are doing it for maybe say thousands of racks. So obviously for them doing that, that cost will be much cheaper. So they can offer you that at a maybe reliable or a reasonable rate. And the thing, so if I touch base this along with the pandemic part, so this primarily I talk about the in normal scenario why it makes sense to move to cloud. Pandemic perspective, typically people have seen if they are not from essential services, it was difficult for people to go and visit their data centers and maintain the upkeep of their server racks and all those stuff. So that was very risky thing. In pandemic there was a sudden surge in demand, so because of those demand also it is difficult. And the one scenario which I'm telling right now regarding the sizing part, we always oversize. I don't know my data growth, or we have certain assumptions basis which we will plan. So I am investing upfront for a hardware which I will actually utilize fully maybe a third year or fourth year. I'm investing upfront right now, and by the time I reach third year, fourth year, fifth year, technology is getting older. I will think of hardware refresh. Right now, those things cloud help us from a refresh perspective, even in normal scenario as well as in pandemic. So of course, it will hold true. So scaling up, sizing, or compute power perspective, they give us the flexibility. So that is very critical part. Another very critical factor is now India is the third largest, I think, unicorn house of unicorns, right? So lots of startups coming in. Now startups, if you ask, put all your money in capex, it's very difficult, right? And they don't know what my sizing will be, what will be the growth, what will be the thing. So I think for startups particularly, cloud is excellent, and they are actually accelerating the startup journey, because most of the startups are tech-based startups, and we have seen the surge during pandemic also. How many people, rather than as a challenge, took it as an opportunity, and their businesses was 2x, 4x, or 10x.
Indeed, indeed. Well said, Kushal, because one of my pain points as a CIO used to be buying that big hardware, which I will not need right now. And unfortunately, most organizations who sell us the hardware wanted us to buy at a better discount if we buy everything upfront versus an upgrade at the later stage, which could become very, very expensive. So yeah, cloud has been a big benefit to all of us who are in that decision-making stage. Welcome, Abhay. You're a little late into the party, but welcome. Abhay is okay. So while I will ask you a question, put you in the spot upfront. I'm sure you're also had a good journey into the cloud in the last couple of years, or probably longer than that. Do you see cloud as a big tool in the hands of the CIO for optimal resource utilization? And that's the question we were talking about when you joined in.
It's a, like, you can call it big tool, or like, it gives you flexibility, agility. That's a point where you have to consider, and like, that's a starting point. Like, instead of investing in hardware and having your own team managing different areas of the managing the data center, I think this has enabled us to. We started journey 5 years back, actually, and we started in a gradual way. Then we realized, like, should we have our own data center? Should we have our own team managing different because during last 5 years, if you really see, the application portfolio of the companies are changing tremendously. It's changing very fast, from IoT to mobile to predictive to, like, there are so many things which are happening. So in order to, and business wants the things to be done very fast, and if you don't have that agile approach, like, our objective was to also reduce time to market. That was a key factor for us, that whatever you, so even if you do a pilot approach, we found that it is very easy to do pilot runs, become success or failure, and move on to the next level. So this is where cloud help us to grow. As of now, we have 35 plus applications which we are running on multi-cloud environment, SaaS environment of this thing, where we don't have to bother about all the back-end work of the infrastructure. So that is where I felt that we have done reasonably good job. Initially, we tried multi-cloud and different cloud vendors, then we aggregated it, and now rationalizing it.
I think cloud has become an integral part of every organization's IT landscape now, right? So a correlated question, how many of you have moved your ERPs to the cloud? I know Kushal talked about ERP starting on the cloud, but how many of you have actually moved your ERP?
So we started in 2017. 2017. SAP on.
So what were the pros and cons when you considered moving to the cloud?
Pros, cons I feel were limited at that. First and foremost was, should we have our own infrastructure, network, our own team, and all those things are gone actually. So what we said that let somebody who's expert manage the services at that level. We focus on business enablement. That was the first. Yes, we came out with 5 years TCO and we justified business that why we should invest. And this is in July we will be completing 5 years.
I understand, because I've had organizations wanting to go either which way. Pradipta, what's been your experience? Have you moved to the cloud, the ERP to the cloud?
Yes, of course. Yeah, we have started the similar journey, like more often Adani as well as the current organization in the RPG group. We have moved all our workload to the SAP workload to the cloud. Of course, because of what we discussed earlier, panelist of ours already highlighted, the cloud is only the better option, like, in terms of the CIA, the foundational thing, the confidentiality, availability, and integrity. And the way Kaushal is also highlighted in the, the disruption, wherever the pandemic is there, if some of the hardware is failed, we don't need to run around here and there for the hard disk replacement or the OEM to replace your hard disk in the data center. It is already available. Like, I don't need to worry about the underlying infrastructure. We need to, as a CIOs and might be IT lead and the business people, to be focusing more towards, like, what business value we are bringing to the table, or what are the things, like, the digital transformation we are talking about. We are putting those building blocks to supporting the business at the part of the business, instead of the whether about, like, moral of the managing the underlying infrastructure. It is already with the experts, the hyperscalers already there in place, like, IBM, or might be the Google, or AWS and Azure. Everybody, a lot of Oracle Cloud, a lot of clouds are available now today. Like, we can leverage those. Though it's the traditional companies, okay, most of the companies are still there who work in the data center, already they invested. But definitely most of the organizations have started adopting, most of the organizations adopted the hybrid cloud model. We cannot get out of everything from the locations or premises what we have or invested. But the journey has started almost for, like, more than 5 years. What Mr. Bapna is already highlighted. Most of the enterprises, large enterprises, are already moving towards the hybrid cloud. And the startup companies, the way you said, that there is no investment of the capex, because the visibility and predictability is very limited. So definitely they have born in the cloud. So definitely there is a, like, most of the advantage on that startup companies, as well as the people, those who have adopted cloud before or today. Definitely the tools which is available for INML and data warehousing part of it, or the predictive analytics, or plant management and information systems, is all everything is available on the cloud, and it is the pay per use, and you can upskill and spin up your resources whenever you need, either month end or year end or quarter end. No need to worry about those, right? So those scalability is already there. You have availability, scalability, agility, and technology advantage is already in place. So why not to adopt those? And that is where it is all large enterprises moving forward. The hybrid, the solution is, of course, there's a hybrid for the large enterprises. You cannot get out of everything. It will not be a zero footprint. We may say that we need a zero footprint, but that is not impossible in the, like, there might be this time takes sometimes. Certain organizations have, as per their strategy, it takes their own time. But definitely the hybrid cloud is existing in multiple or multi-cloud. That is the way forward. That's my submission. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Pradipta. I think multi-cloud is something that a lot of organizations are evaluating, and I have seen some succeed, but more of them have challenges with multi-cloud as compared to staying with a single cloud. I think everyone realizes and accepts that the ERP is the backbone of the organization. It is, whether it is SAP or any other, but SAP is, I think, in India, the most popular ERP that everyone uses. What would be your recommendation as IT leaders for somebody who wants to embark on a SAP HANA journey? Should they be doing it on-premise? Should they be looking at cloud? What would be your recommendations? And this is an open question. Anyone can take it up and start.
Arun, shall I take this first?
Please.
Yeah. So I want to touch base very critical point when you were talking about the previous question, which is pros and cons of cloud. So because we are moving out from the secured perimeter of our firewall and we were having corporate network, which was primarily MPLS, right? So security is a big concern. And when we are talking about ERP also, so I'll tell you the innovative way which I found, I think very few people might have done that. What we have done is we have uh, we are extensively using SAP Fiori apps, which I think very few people might be using. And IBM helped us a lot in a big way in doing that. Second is we have also enabled web GUI of SAP. So even if you have not installed the SAP GUI, the agent in your laptop, still on web, just go to the website and then do it. Now the most critical piece which comes in picture is the security part, because if I'm publishing on web, then it is just your username and password. So what I did is I integrated this with my Azure AD. So we have enabled SSO, single sign-on, and MFA, multi-factor authentication, which give me two-factor authentication or security. So you have, and people don't have to remember their employee code or their username. It is their email ID and the password which they have to enter, and they receive a OTP on their mobile phone. So it's a easy way they can access SAP from their laptop, from their mobile, from any part of the world in a secure manner. Otherwise, we have we have given GUI option also. In GUI, we are using Azure VPN gateway, so that there also security is not being compromised. But I think in a secured manner and in a user-friendly manner, how we can offer it to the user. My C-suite people, my management committee, they love Fiori apps. They are approving all purchase order on the mobile, so it's very easy, very handy for them.
Rajeev, do you want to add something to that? You're on mute, Rajeev. No, we still can't hear you.
Now you can hear me?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. I should appreciate that this particular discussion for past almost 50-55 minutes is going very well, and a very interesting discussion happening on the table. And just on the lighter side, Arun, I heard you saying that Abhay had joined the party late. In our previous working all along, there used to be a case wherein whoever joins the meeting late, that person coming late has to pay for the coffee bill of everyone.
Sure.
So I think I should say that this applies here also. Okay. That was on the lighter side, Arun, and I agree with the points everyone has placed on the table, and especially what Kushal was saying. And after moving to cloud, it is not the end of the journey, according to me. It's just the beginning of the entire transformation process that organizations should follow. By moving to cloud, we are at a slightly comfortable situation. The IT department especially, and whatever pain areas were there with respect to the skills, with respect to the hardware refresh, maintaining the entire setup. So that is slightly afforded, and the IT people can concentrate more and more on their core activities. That is what I feel. And after moving to cloud, after moving of ERP to cloud, it is the next step is, according to me, the process optimization phase, wherein your IT team should look into how we can optimize the process, where are the areas for process enhancement, where are the areas wherein the process is not performing properly, there are pain areas for the users. So that process optimization phase needs to be followed. And next, according to me, is how we can leverage the benefit of cloud, with not only with respect to the compute power, but also with the analytical capabilities. And now, since every organization is implementing various projects related to IoT and all the things, so whatever data is pushed to the cloud, that needs to be used in the best possible manner best analytical way. Data is there everywhere. Data is available according to me. There's no scarcity of data. In fact, the data is available in abundance according to me. So how to make the best use of data by leveraging various technologies, AI, ML, and all those things, and give a beautiful insight to the operation level people so that it becomes easier for them to take the effective decisions. Information should be available to them. So that is the process of enhancement and using the analytical capability of the cloud is what should be done by the technology people. And just a different touch. I have spent almost 35 years in this field, and earlier it used to be IT department used to be a service department according to me. So a user asking a laptop, the IT department has to provide the laptop. User asking this, IT department has to provide that. But gone are the days and wherein the entire role of IT department is being changed. It is not the service department, it is not the solution provider department. It has to work as a technology enabler according to me. So that is the role that IT department has to play, and rather just supplying the equipments. And whenever there is a problem statement from any of the user department, then IT has to pitch in and jump in and find out as to how that solution can be resolved, what is the technology solution that can be provided, and how the life of each and every working in the organization can be simplified, and we can make a productivity enhancement. So that is the role that every IT department person has to play. Those are my views, Arun, on the overall topic. Over to you.
Thank you, Rajeev. We are almost out of time, so I would switch back to Vijay. IBM is offering a lot of cloud services to customers, public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, all kinds of clouds, right? Can you please help the group understand IBM cloud offerings and what are the pain points you're solving for your customers? You're on mute, Vijay.
Yeah, sorry. In fact, a lot of those things which are part of the offerings, what IBM has got discussed here, in terms of whether they have deployed them or whether they are looking as a business expectation. In fact, as an IBM cloud, in fact, as an organization itself, not just cloud, as an organization, we take in pride calling ourselves as an hybrid cloud and an artificial intelligence company. And as the panelists and the different CEOs in the call clearly articulated, it cannot be everything on cloud. It needs to be a mix of on-prem, cloud, hybrid, multi-cloud, etc. I think that's what IBM looks as what it needs to offer to the customer. We have around 170 plus offerings across most of the enterprise grade expectations, whether it is AI, blockchain, security, mobile, IoT, you name the field, we have our offerings around it, and 200 plus APIs through multiple third-party vendors. And I spoke on the pillars on which IBM Cloud is built on, but I want to touch on slightly different, which also got discussed in this meeting, in terms of how IT has become more as a pull department than a push department, as one of the partner in ensuring that a lot of the business initiatives are taken to the market fast. So so for us also, it's rather than saying why cloud against an on-prem, we have crossed that stage in our product life cycle or the services life cycle, and we have moved into what we can co-work with the IT team or the digital team to ensure the business gets the benefit. So I think there are some 4 or 5 key areas which I wanted to point out. First is the compliance and regulation. Extremely important for business because the expectation is not to run a workload in the cloud, but it expects the cloud service vendor like IBM to share the responsibility around the compliance and the regulations. How IBM or the cloud vendor can assist the business in ensuring their audit and other regulatory requirements are met. That's why IBM has specifically invested on bringing out industry specific, particularly the regulated industry specific clouds. So we have already announced the regulatory cloud for FSS as well as the regulatory clouds for telecom. This is the first part on compliance and regulations. The second one is on the edge computing. As again, I think one of the discussion point which came up was we have a lot of data within our premises. So that will typically remain, right? And because of latency and all those stuff, security, compliance, you might not want to take the data from your on-prem to the cloud. So what the cloud vendors feel is it's important that we extend the cloud computing to the place where the data is, whether it is in your data center, your mobile device, whatever it is, the edge computing. And with the invent of 5G and adoption of 5G, this is going to increase significantly. IBM has an offering called IBM Cloud Satellite, which allows the IBM PaaS offerings to be taken to your data center. Okay, so that you don't need to take the data out. This is the second one, which brings, which sort of more distributed or a hybrid strategy to ensure we take care of the latency, performance, as well as the compliance regulations. The third one is primarily around, this also got discussed, build anywhere and build and deploy anywhere. Very, very important, typically on a multi-cloud environment or in a hybrid cloud environment. That's where our acquisition of Red Hat has gone a long way in us developing multiple of these stack on Red Hat OpenShift, which means you can build this on IBM Cloud, but tomorrow, for whatever reasons, you want to look at other options, the options are available seamlessly. That is the openness that we want to bring it into our offerings. And the last but not the least is security. As more and more you are taking your digital, your core workloads into the cloud, security becomes a non-negotiable instrument with your business. So what IBM has done is IBM has come out with the offering around the hyper protect, around the confidential computing, where it allows you to bring your own key. It allows the data or the process to be encapsulated, where only as an user you can see, even the cloud provider or the managed service provider can't see those processor data. So with confidential computing, we make security as the underlying framework of what runs in the IBM cloud. And being a security company ourselves, it gives us a lot of that flexibility to start from scratch when we start building our offerings, to have security as the fundamentals on the offering. And finally, we spoke on SAP and ERP. Very proud to say that on February 10th, IBM and SAP jointly announced
We lost him, I think.
Yeah, I think his connection seems to have got stuck. We'll probably give him another 15 seconds. If it doesn't come back, we'll do a conclusion. Okay. Well, I guess Vijay's got lost in the cloud somewhere. So I think good time to say bye-bye, and a small conclusion from my side. I think that digitalization of business process and customer experience is all about happening now. Nobody's talking about whether they should be doing it or not. It's all happening. And like many of you mentioned, there's been a problem of plenty. Every organization has started leveraging cloud, and we could again hear that as a part of our conversation today. Sometimes it's about reducing costs, sometimes it's about innovation, trying out new stuff, without really taking any major undertaking in the deployment of data centers. So while every organization approaches their cloud journey differently, I think mission critical applications are probably going to be amongst the last to move to the cloud. But there's no mistake that migration of mission critical line of business workloads to the cloud will happen sooner or later, and it will be part of every organization's aspirations to do away with the infrastructure that IT had to manage all along. And like Pradipta said, it's no longer about what I want to run in my data center. It's about running the business, being a partner to the business rather than managing infrastructure. Thank you very much, panelists. It was great talking to you. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. We could have continued talking probably for another half an hour, and we would have had a great conversation. So thank you. Bye-bye. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.